All right, wrestling fans.
Let's do it.
Pretty controversial.
Okay.
We're talking about the Stone Cold Steve Austin heel turn at WrestleMania 17.
Ooh, yeah, big one.
So for those who maybe aren't super familiar,
Yeah.
when we talk about a heel turn, we're talking about
Right.
when a wrestler goes from being like the good guy, the hero,
Exactly.
to being the bad guy.
The villain, yeah.
So in this case, we're talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Texas Rattlesnake,
The biggest at the time.
the guy who everybody loved.
Oh, yeah.
And he ends up joining forces with his arch nemesis, Mr. McMahon.
Ah, what?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about why that happened and what it meant for the WWF.
Okay.
Because this is a really interesting time
Yeah.
in wrestling history.
Absolutely.
Because the WWF's kind of in this weird spot
Okay.
where WCW and ECW are kind of fading out of the picture.
Yeah, they're going away.
So it's like, where does the WWF go from here?
Right. What happened?
Right. And so this is
Huge turning point.
This is a huge turning point.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really fascinating about this whole thing is that Austin's turn,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it marked the end of an era.
It did in wrestling.
Right. Because his rise perfectly coincided with the WWF's Attitude Era,
Oh, yeah.
which, if you're not familiar,
Right.
it was all about pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
It was a lot edgier.
A lot more violent, a lot more, curse words.
Yeah, it attracted a whole new generation of fans.
A really different audience.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting backdrop.
Right. It's a lot going on.
But our main source for this deep dive is the one and only Jim Cornette.
Oh, boy.
So Jim Cornette has some very strong opinions about wrestling,
He does.
to say the least.
To say the least, he is adamant that turning Austin heel was a huge mistake.
Okay.
He argues that it completely betrayed Austin's character
Yeah.
and it alienated the fans.
Right.
He has this great analogy.
What does he?
He says it's like your favorite rock star. Okay.
Suddenly churning out elevator music.
Wow.
It kind of captures it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you have this expectation. This is who this person is.
Oh,
this is what they represent.
Right.
And then suddenly they're doing something completely different.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hear like Metallica playing, smooth jazz.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because,
Yeah.
this is happening as the WWF is absorbing talent
Yeah.
from its rivals.
Right, from WCW and ECW.
From WCW and ECW, exactly.
Yep.
And Cornette points to this significant drop in viewership
Okay.
after WCW folded,
Interesting.
which is really interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Because it means the WWF was already vulnerable.
Oh, okay.
Right.
They were already in a tough spot.
They were already in a tough spot.
Yeah.
So to turn their top star heel at that point,
Yeah. Risky move.
risky to Cornette, it's like adding fuel to the fire.
Wow. Okay. So I see where he's coming from. Yeah. It's a really interesting point about like the vulnerability of the WWF at the time.
Totally. And, you've got this backdrop of WCW and ECW going away.
Right.
Like everything's changing.
Yeah.
So I do see Cornette's point, but I also kind of wonder,
Okay.
was the heel turn a gamble?
Okay.
Like maybe it was a calculated risk?
Right.
The Attitude Era had been going strong for a few years?
Yeah. It was getting a little stale maybe. Yeah.
Maybe they need to shake things up.
Right. Maybe Vince McMahon thought this could be a way to kind of reinvigorate things.
Yeah, extend the narrative.
Yeah. Create some new rivalries.
Right, because you think about it.
Yeah.
When someone turns heel,
Yeah.
that opens up a whole world of possibilities.
New storylines, new
Yeah.
matchups.
So it's a gamble,
It is a gamble.
but it's an interesting one.
Very interesting.
And, we know Vince McMahon,
Yeah.
he's never been afraid to make a bold move.
No, he hasn't. That's for sure.
But Cornette's argument is that the damage to Austin's connection with the fans was irreparable.
Okay.
He suggests that bond that Austin had built with the audience
Yeah.
was so strong that the heel turn felt like a personal betrayal.
Wow.
Like he broke that trust.
It's like he lied to them in a way.
Exactly. And it's interesting because
Yeah.
it speaks to the whole idea of kayfabe.
Yeah. Kayfabe, that's that blurred line between performance and reality in wrestling.
It's what makes wrestling so compelling.
Yeah, because even though fans know it's staged,
Right.
they get emotionally invested in those characters and those storylines.
Absolutely. So when something like this happens,
Yeah.
it feels real.
Right. It feels like a real betrayal, even though it's all part of the show.
Exactly. And Cornette is very clear.
Okay.
He doesn't think the WWF ever really recovered from this,
Wow.
which is a bold statement.
It is a bold statement.
But it's worth pointing out,
What's that?
Austin was already dealing with some pretty serious neck injuries.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That would eventually limit his career.
Yeah, that's true. He had to retire eventually.
So would his popularity have waned anyway?
Right. It's like a
God.
what if.
Yeah.
What if he hadn't turned heel, but his injuries forced him to change his style anyway?
Exactly.
It's impossible to know for sure.
That's a tough one.
It is. But I do think Cornette's perspective highlights something really important.
What's that?
The power dynamics within the WWF at that time.
Okay.
Vince McMahon's vision often prevailed,
Right.
even when others disagreed.
Right. And that's something we see throughout wrestling history.
Absolutely.
So ultimately what we've learned from this deep dive
Yeah,
is that the heel turn might have been a creative gamble.
right.
But Cornette is very, very convinced it backfired.
Okay.
He thinks it alienated fans.
Yeah.
And really damaged Austin's legacy.
Interesting.
And what's really interesting is that it brings up this whole idea of authenticity,
Yeah.
even in a world of scripted entertainment.
Right, because even though we know it's fake,
Right.
authenticity still matters to the fans.
It does, and that's what makes this such a fascinating case study.
Absolutely.
So we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What do you think about Austin's heel turn?
Did it ruin his career?
Was it a brilliant move?
Was it a mistake?
Let us know your thoughts.
We want to hear them.
Because this is one of those things that still sparks debate
Oh, yeah, for sure.
among wrestling fans to this day.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive
Deep dive.
into Stone Cold's controversial heel turn.
Until next time.
We'll see you in the ring.
See you later.
Pete.
So Vince McMahon's lawyer has reached out to everybody to let them know that the charges will not be filed. They've been dropped, essentially. So Vince McMahon, as far as the federal case goes, is off the hook. That is the breaking news from Vince McMahon's lawyer. It's everywhere right now. Pretty crazy stuff. So the federal probe into WWE is over, or into Vince McMahon at least, is over. Last night, former AEW star Ricky Starks made his surprise NXT debut. It was clearly just a little fun thing that they put together quickly to have him come out there and make a big noise very quickly and everything. So some people, there's not a ton to look into on it, but it is what it is. What do you think Tony Khan thought about the whole thing? I don't know. But before I get to the next point, I want you guys to tell me all the things you think about these things in the comments down below. Feel free to super thanks if you can, and directly support the show at paypal.me/JoeCornetteShow. And I hope you subscribe if you're brand new so you can hear all my ridiculousness all the time. Former WWE star Indy Hartwell surveys her road ahead. Where is Indy Hartwell going? I mean, people are surprised that Indy Hartwell is not in the WWE anymore. That was fairly shocking to everybody. Probably going to go to AEW. AEW and WWE like to do this tit for tat thing. Here, you take our garbage. You take our garbage. Ha, we got your garbage. You got our garbage. And they just it's like they're going to start signing people in spite of each other just to sign people because the other one signed somebody. So now I'm going to sign your other person. And I don't know if that's healthy, and it's bizarre, and maybe that won't continue. But so far it's been this ping pong paddle back and forth. And it's not about the creative and the real wants and needs of the company. At least so far it hasn't been to me. It's really been about going and acquiring somebody else's talent. And I think WWE's a little more confident in it because when they do, they feel like they can elevate someone a little bit better, whereas AEW has not really done a good job of elevating almost anybody. Only a few have been successful in the crossover. So I think WWE just feels a lot more secure with how they're doing it at this point. Now it's time for the recap. I think the thing that I can't believe about the Hogan saga the most, and I want to remind you, I grew up a Hulkamaniac. Do you know what I mean? I grew up loving WWE from 1986, starting in 1986. WrestleMania 5 really is actually the truth. So WrestleMania 5 and beyond, and Hulk Hogan was my thing. But anyway, we're judging on what's going on today. I don't know how Hogan does these things. Hogan is like, Hogan is like a computer that never has like a hard drive. You know how your hard drive in your computer like retains all the memory? Hogan is like always operating on RAM, in like the random temporary memory. Do you know what I mean? He's always just sputtering out crazy stuff left and right. And his brain doesn't know what he said last time. And his brain doesn't even remember like 18 years ago maybe necessarily. But he's got to say something, so he just says all these things, even if he doesn't know or remember it the right way. So sometimes I wonder if it's not that he's necessarily always lying on purpose, or that like this maybe his brain just doesn't work right. But this one really,
I think the politics had a whole lot to do with it, like you said.
I would say, yeah, I would assume you get into the politics and also some other stuff, you know.
I mean, yeah, like Pat McAfee right to Hogan here is like, yeah. I mean, you know, it's the politics because Hogan was trying to say, oh no, this is something else. I was here before. What yada whatever else.
Yeah, of course. But at the end.
Yeah. I mean, when
Did you feel bad for him? No.
Well, hey man, I got
We played that video yesterday with Undertaker. Like, I don't know. What are you gonna do? I don't feel bad.
feelings. I got feelings for people. Like sometimes in life, things come back.
Well, I mean,
when you go and do the Republican convention, you know immediately you're going to piss off, 47% of the country, especially with how political hatred is currently in the world. Do you think that, and first of all, whenever you say a beer bringing the world together, we talk about it a lot, how teams come together.
Pat McAfee is just running over his own thoughts here because he's so nervous about saying the right thing, but trying to get real answers. It's like trying to go viral, get lots of clicks, also respectful of his audience to actually ask Hulk Hogan these real questions and get into it a bit, but also to like caress it and massage it and give it a big hug. Like, yeah, man, you know, you've said some crazy things, and that's bad, and we know that, and you know that, but, you know, wow, you're so great. Let me give you a hug now. So he's just like bulldozing over his own work, over himself, like with three different thoughts as he tries to like fornicate himself into something that's coherent.
Like at the Intuit Dome, I don't think any of us expected.
No, I did.
You expect?
He did. Hulk Hogan just told you he did expect it. He expected the booze. He expected the problems. I expected it. See, I can't even believe. I like this is what makes me think. Like, I don't know. Is Pat McAfee? I can't tell if Pat McAfee is a shill or if he just. I don't think he's a shill though. I think Pat McAfee kind of says what he thinks. I think Pat McAfee's just a fun guy and whatever. Because how could Pat McAfee not know that Hogan was going to be booed? Because I knew he was going to be booed. Because I even rolled my eyes like, oh no, like why is Hogan here for this? Listen, I love Hogan, but like, my God. And then they're in LA and stuff. So it's just like, did we not all know this? But I appreciate him saying he didn't know, according to him.
Expected that because of the political stuff or because of everything else?
But you got to realize, last time I ran hard in L.A., I was a bad guy. I was Hollywood Hogan, man. I was riding dirty with the boys, you know, Nash and Hall, and we were spray painting people and crotch shotting everybody and started out with the too sweet stuff. So last time I was there, I was a heel. But I think the politics had a whole lot to do with it, like you said.
I would say, yeah, I would say.
Listen, I think the reason why I was booed is because the last time I was there, these people remember 15 years ago. Let me tell you. How long ago was that Hogan was running the NWO? And what is he, like, what? No, man, like, this is what I'm talking about. And you got to give Hogan some leeway, man. He's like, what is he, like 70? Hogan's like 68 or something. I don't know how old Hogan is. 70? I'm not sure. I think, dude, he's an older guy now. He's getting into Joe Biden territory. He don't know what he's saying. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm going to try not to do this. If I make it to be older, I don't even know if I'm going to make being older. But if I do make being older, I'm going to try not to reflect on things as if everybody knows what I'm talking about. Guys, he was in the NWO. In what the hell year was it? 2003 or 4 or something? I don't even remember. We're talking about like at least 15 years ago that he's saying, oh, I'm getting booed there because they remember that. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because a lot of these people are new fans. A lot of the people booing in LA, I guarantee you, half of that crowd didn't start watching WWE until 2006. All of the OGs that were around back then have either stopped watching or mostly watch on TV or replays or whatever. Like, nobody remembers this. I mean, yeah, a lot of people do remember this, but a lot of the people in the arena are not. The people that hate you the most are people typically that are under the age of 35, from what I've noticed. Because I'm 40, and a lot of my audience and a lot of people that I know 40 and above, yeah, there's some people that call Hulk Hogan a scumbag and they don't like him either, but there's definitely still more of a love for Hogan from the 40 and up category. And a lot of the people attending these shows are in their 30s at this point. And I just think that he doesn't know that. He doesn't understand that. It's just so funny that he's trying to say, "Well, I was booed because, hey man, I was a heel there."
But politics and also some other stuff, you know.
Yeah, of course. But at the end.
Yeah. I mean, when
Oh my God, this is so weird too. When Hogan laughs at this. See, this is where like you need to be a Hogan. Listen, I'm not somebody who thinks you got to apologize forever. What are you going to apologize forever till the end of time, every time, and whatever else? But I'm just saying, if you got caught in private saying something racist, right, like to your daughter, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he basically, it was something about like don't date N-words or whatever. It was something like that along those lines, right? So if you get caught saying something like that and you know everybody heard it, and whether you are or aren't, but especially if you're not a racist person, like you're not really racist, but you were having a couple of beers and you got angry and that's what you said with your daughter. Like it could have been a Hispanic guy, a black guy, could have been a white guy, maybe he's fat, or a poor guy, I don't know, whatever. You would have chose some derogatory way to put down somebody. Whatever it is, whatever the excuse is, whatever the reason is, whatever. Why don't you just when he says this, when someone brings it up, right? When Pat McAfee says, when Pat McAfee says, and this is me to Hogan, if you're listening, Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, if Pat McAfee says to you, and also some other stuff they might be booing you for too, and then you laugh like this. Watch this laugh. If it's a nervous like I don't know what that's uncomfortable, I'll just laugh.
But at the end.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in a public eye for 40 years.
Yeah.
So basically he's bringing up the racial slur here by saying like, and maybe it's some other things, but I'm too courteous to say, well, Hogan, remember the racial slur? I think that sits bad with a lot of people too. He didn't say that. He just said maybe some other stuff, but they know we're talking about the N-word.
At the end.
Yeah. I mean, when you're
a lot to do with it, like you said.
I would say, I would assume you get into politics and also some other stuff,
Yeah, of course. But at the end.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in a public eye for 40 years.
Yeah, you do slip and fall a couple times.
Yeah, and they're going to see it. Everybody's
But anyway, at the end of the day, we kind of looked at it the next day because, I had.
So, like, it's like he's like completely, I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't know if this is sociopath behavior. I'm not sure. But what I would have done if I was Hogan and I'm in that position and this guy basically just insinuated that whole thing, I don't want to necessarily bring it all up again and make another news story about it and make more people aware of this terrible thing that got recorded and brought up. And I think Hogan feels like he never publicly did it, or he never really did it. He was secretly recorded, almost like, well, that it didn't happen then. If I was secretly recorded, I'm denying that I did it. But everybody heard it, and the perception is that you did, so it would be good to come out and say something on the whole situation. So what Hogan should have done here is he should have just said, well, that's very understandable. That's probably one of the worst things, you know what I mean, that I've ever done, or that's ever happened to me, or the worst misstep that I've ever made. Once you make a mistake like that, although it really should have never been heard by anybody, but if you're at your worst and it gets recorded, that's something that's going to sit with people maybe forever. And all I can do is tell you that the perception of that is not the man that I really am, and that those people that know me and know who I've worked with and know things that I've said in the locker room, there's been a lot of things that I've been called and a lot of accusations about me, and I've made a lot of mistakes. But one thing that I'm not really is a racist. And but when you hear a clip like that, that's going to be hard to change anybody's mind, and it's going to be disappointing to many people all over the place. And so there's a lot of disappointed fans in the Hulkster for that. You know, it goes beyond the heel thing. It's real life stuff. And I certainly don't stand by that. I don't, you know, it's not something that, it's obviously very embarrassing, especially when, you know, you try to tell people you're not that person, but that's all they can think of. How am I going to argue out of that? My only thing is to kind of beg for everyone's mercy as far as that goes, because I understand that I let a lot of people down. And until the day I die and I'm in a coffin and I'm dead and I'm no longer on this planet, I'm going to be trying to earn back every fan that I might have lost, all because of that. And it's understandable. But that being said, yeah, there was other things too. Politics. You know, I ran heel here for a long time too. I mean, I did a lot of things here, and there's all kinds of other reasons too. It all kind of, all kind of snowballed into one big ball of hate. But yeah, that's basically, I think, what happened. Why can't you say something like that? And because you can't say something like that, it makes people think even more that he's this demon or that he's this lying, terrible, bad person. And, you know, a lot of wrestlers have been saying that about him for years, and I think a lot of the fans kind of brushed it off as like, hey, listen, these guys are jealous of Hogan. You know, he was the top guy. They're all jealous of the spot. I'm sure Hogan did some backstabby, weird top guy things back in the day. All the wrestlers do these sort of things. So, hey, man, if, you know, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, we've all heard crazy stories about all of them. Hogan being the worst probably, or Shawn maybe. But, you know, that being said, he's still Hulk Hogan, whatever. But this stuff is different.
Like 11 billion impressions, you know, and some of the other guys, some of the big stars that were on that car that night only had like 3 billion. I don't name names, but, you know, we were
So you were like,
oh, yeah, I was like, ooh, hate me some more.
Yeah. Hate me some more. Oh, man. If I was Pat McAfee, this is why I don't have a show like Pat McAfee. You know, this is why he made it on ESPN and I didn't, because I would say, well, listen, Hulk, you know, I think some of it's got to do probably with the politics. It's got to do with this. It's got to do with that. It's got to do with the racial slur, you know. And I don't want to get into that too much because I want to stay on the positive here, because I know that, you know, you've apologized profusely about that. And, you know, but a lot of people are forgiving you. You know, I mean, some people haven't, obviously. We heard that the other night. But just for everybody, you know, let's just get it out of the way. You know, anything goes on my show. Hulk, could you just say the N-word for everybody? and just see if he says it, and see what he says, just for the clip. Hey, you know, just, hey, listen, Booker T told me it's cool. Hey, drop the N-bomb right here on the show for us, would you? That would be fucking hilarious. I mean, so inappropriate and crazy, but that's why it's funny. Or if that doesn't work, put on some crazy rap song where the N-bomb is dropped a bunch, and then tell Hogan, be like, hey, Hulkster, listen, I got this song that I love a lot. You know, it's by Tupac. You ever heard this song? We're gonna play this song for you right now. It's called Lil Homies. Okay, and then start playing it, and then like play it really loud, and when he drops the N-bomb, like zoom in on Hogan's face, and then like have somebody edit out the N-word in the Tupac song, and then have them with a clip of it. So like during the song, he just keeps pressing the button, so it drops the N-bomb at times where it doesn't even in the song normally, and it's like over and over again, and then keep zooming in on Hogan's face until he's like uncomfortable. And just see what he does. Like, it doesn't matter what he does. He might do nothing. But just the idea that you're playing this uncomfortable song with Hogan sitting there. And then when it's over, be like, what do you think about that song? Hulkster, what do you think, man? It's a good song, huh? Pretty good song, right? You can identify with the lyrics, right? And then just, like, I mean, like, dude, I'm sorry. I would be the Howard Stern of this whole, like, it would.
We actually ran a press conference the day after. I don't know if you got a chance to see it from the Hulkster, but we have a lot of questions for you. Is that okay?
So Hogan thinks he was booed because he was a heel.
Yeah, but the one thing
like 15 years ago.
is I was talking about the beer, you know, we're in a relationship with the WWE, you know, they're my partner in this thing. And I had to be a good guy in LA.
Yes.
Now, if this was for wrestling and they turned on me like that, I'd have turned into Hollywood Hulk. I said, oh,
hell yeah.
So you hate me for everything I've done for all the Make-A-Wish kids and everything I did for your kids. Well, guess what? I did it for the money. and by the way,
You know, Hogan returned.
Here we go.
I love Undertaker, bro. We played this clip yesterday, but it's just too good. He like looks off camera. He's like, here we go. Like they've been talking shit for like weeks probably about this. And I love this guy. They got this guy in the middle. I don't even know his name still, but I'm starting to like him because he don't give a shit. It's like they brought him on so that he could bring up these fucking things that they don't want to bring up or they can't bring up. So he's like I don't know who this guy is actually, but he's like I want to say like a rogue or like he's like a rogue podcast host. It's perfect for Undertaker. I would be perfect for Undertaker, but I don't think he can handle me. But my God, is he, because he just casually goes, hey man, listen, you ever see Vince McMahon like take a shit on somebody? I mean, like he would just bring up whatever, and then Undertaker has to respond, where previously they wouldn't have brought it up at all.
Hogan returned.
Fucking
way.
You know,
I couldn't get enough of this the other day.
Hogan returned.
The way that, oh my God. I'm sorry, I know that I shouldn't be pausing this so much, but the deadpan look, seriousness on his face, and then the way Taker just cracks up, bro. He's like, hey, Hogan was back recently.
Hogan returned. You know, Hogan returned.
I didn't even say anything. He just said, you know, Hogan, and Hogan just said one word. He just said Hogan. That was it. Oh my God, bro. I'm going to pass out. He just said one word. He's like, you know, Hogan, and fucking Taker.
Hogan returned.
Here we go. Here we go.
You know,
Come on.
He's like, what'd I say, man? What happened?
that pop was something.
It was something.
It was a pop.
It was. That was an ego pop.
Lord have mercy. Wonder what you think he went back to the dress. Well, you were there.
I was there.
What happened? What happened backstage after he came back?
You know, when I saw him, he was no selling it and pushing his beer.
Imagine like Hogan coming out back, like, and he's like, "Hey brother, you want to buy some Hulkamania beer or whatever it is?" And they're like, "Do you know what just happened out there to you? Do you have any? Do you even know what just happened? Were you out there a second ago?" "Yeah, brother, I went out and I told America about real American beer." "Well, you know something? You want real American beer, dude." Hulk, were you just out there? Did you hear people? You just got booed.
I didn't see him. I wasn't backstage when he came.
Did you feel like giving him a hug afterwards?
No. Here's Taker being a company man right.
See, like, this is the real reason why Undertaker's not booed. But I told you there's a couple of reasons. Number one, it's because he's a likable Republican to the other half. But also, he's even likable to the Republican side because even right-wing or independent voters, I hate to break us all down into voting groups. It's so stupid, but do you know what I mean? Like, you know, whether it's left-wing, right-wing, whatever, the extreme left probably hates Hogan. And a lot of the left probably doesn't really care for him at this point. And some of the right doesn't care for Hogan either. So it's like, that's why Hogan's booed, because most people just don't care as much for him anymore. Undertaker's never really done anything. He's a Republican. So what? He shouldn't be booed for just being a Republican. He shouldn't be booed just because he had Trump on. And he's not. He's not booed. There's only a few extreme far left dumbasses out there that don't like The Undertaker. that I've seen. Most people like The Undertaker. It's like a lot of people, I don't know. I don't know if everybody is like this with me, but I have a lot of stupid takes. I have a lot of dumb opinions, dumb takes, things that don't pan out politically, emotionally, opinion-wise. Guys, how many things have I said that you thought, man, what a stupid person Joe is? I'm not even listening to him for a while, or I'm done listening to him. You know, or you got mad, or you were just annoyed by things I was doing or saying, but you came back, or you gave me another chance, or, you know, you're willing to, like, hey, I don't agree with Joe on a lot of things, but I still think he's a pretty good person for the most part, and he'll come around. You know, if you can have that opinion of somebody, then you'll still like them, because you'll be cheering for them that they'll see the light, or that they'll maybe come around more to your side, right? And or even if you don't, I still love you anyway, you know? And that's when you have a real friend, or a real viewer, or a real listener, or real friend, or care about somebody. You know, you really do care about them, because even if their political opinion pisses you off, you're still willing to say, well, I still love you. And that's the way people feel about Undertaker. I don't agree with everything Undertaker says politically. There's quite a bit of what the Undertaker believes politically. I do believe. I think he's right. But, you know, I just think he wasn't as in your face about it like Hogan was too. Just like with everything. Way more obnoxious, right? Undertaker's cool. Undertaker's like, hey, Trump, thanks for being on my podcast. Let's talk about saving the country. You know, Hogan's out there like, you know something, dude? I'll tell you about Trump, brother. And he's on the campaign. Like, everything Hogan does is over the top or obnoxious or sociopathic or whatever. People just, like, see, I think Taker is more genuine. But also, let's not forget the big handicap that Hogan has. The handicap that Hogan has is that the guy hasn't really been prominent in the WWE for over 15 years, you know? Whereas Undertaker had his last match 4 years ago or whatever it was. Undertaker has been at the forefront still, so Undertaker has bled into new generations. Dude, the last 1 and 2 generations have been bred, have grown up with The Undertaker. This is the first. There's starting to be a new generation of wrestling viewer recently. Like, there's a few new people starting to tune in over the last 5 years. Over the last 5 years, The Undertaker is still coming on TV once in a while to say hello. And those people are still kind of getting to experience him in a way. So there is like no generation that hasn't really had Undertaker. So Undertaker does have the advantage of that, right? Of goodwill recently. But Hogan hasn't really been involved in 15 years. And Hogan really hasn't been prominent. Now, he does come back every once in a while to say hi. But for the people who started watching 5 and 10 years ago, they don't really know why. And a lot of them don't go back and watch old Hogan matches that much either. So they don't fully get it, right? They might get John Cena, right? Because they know him in the modern times. John Cena is still a name. So it's for those reasons that Undertaker is not booed like Hulk Hogan. A lot of modern people of the last 5 to 10 years, wrestling fans, from their perspective, all they know about Hogan is that a lot of talent didn't like him, that he was kind of a jerk-off, and he was a very famous wrestler at a time, but they don't remember and weren't born even in that time. And they know that he's said racial slurs on tape. His son sucks. And I don't know, his daughter had a singing career or something. His wife divorced. It just he seems like a mess. And he's on tour with Trump. So right there, half of the new audience doesn't like Hogan right there. And the other half just doesn't get it anyway. So you're only relying on people who are 30 years or 40 years and older to understand Hogan and to give a damn. And when you think about that and put that into that perspective, you start to realize, like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense why he's getting booed. Because Hogan and Taker aren't that much different in age. And they're both Republicans. So it's not that. It's the disconnect, and then also the what Hogan's done.
Look, I was.
Did you feel bad for him? No.
Well, hey man, I got feelings. I got feelings for people. Like sometimes in life, things come back.
Well, I mean, it's funny that we were talking about this last night. That with all the podcasts and all the books and everything, and everybody realizes that Hogan wasn't the guy that he was portrayed to be. And I'm not asking you to put yourself in a tight spot here or anything, but I mean, he's not
from a
the
fan's
guy.
perspective.
Yeah,
We grew up.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, dude, I got to be honest, to break it to this guy, most people don't. It's not that. We all knew Hogan was kind of a prick liar guy. We've known it for years. I mean, they've brought it up for years. It's going back to the mid-'90s. Stone Cold Steve Austin cutting promos on Hogan. Late 90s into the early 2000s, people have always known Hogan is kind of a skeevy guy, right? And then shoot interviews that started coming out in the early 2000s. I mean, people have always known. The problem is anybody who's under the age of 35 or 37 or something like that, that's all that they know, right? All they know is Hogan, this and that, and oh my God. That's all they know. And racial slur, N-word, and now he's back pushing a beer, and he did the Republican National Convention thing to support Trump. So that's all those people know. All they know is the stab in the backs, the lies, whatever. That's all they know. And so for that reason, he gets booed.
Seeing Hogan as this great thing,
bigger
and then
in life Americana kind of deal, and then obviously, he gets caught on tape, saying some derogatory, racist things, and in this day and age where all of that is such a hot button deal, like I don't know what you expect. Like
I think
people
also,
are gonna, they're gonna react, and they're not gonna react in a positive way.
And I think also the other part too is, I think the fans themselves have found out what kind of locker room guy he was, and it means a lot to the fans that you're a good locker room guy as well. You know what I mean?
That's probably a good point. I mean, the fans, they have access now to everything, and they do, and then they get to hear people's interviews, and so they kind of feel like they're part of that locker room. And this was somebody that was, regardless of where he's at now. They kind of carry a grudge about it, because he's come back before since all of the stuff with his daughter and all the racial stuff and all that, and he's came back and he's got positive reactions. It's just,
but it's like with my stuff.
Again, what I've been trying to explain to everybody, and I'll wrap this up, is that the audience is a little different right now. You're seeing an audience. A lot of the WWE audience right now has been watching for 5 and 10 years. And then there's the other half of the audience that are still the old OGs, like the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, and above, 50, 60, 70. But a lot of people that are there, I feel like, are in their 30s now, and they started watching 10 years ago. And so when Hogan came back 5 years ago, you still had a bunch of the OGs watching and that were there, fans. But now, when he comes out, it's more of the newer audience, more of the people who grew up only watching Cena, who are still going to the shows, And so, again, for those reasons, he's not getting cheered like before. It's and then the political climate. You just throw it all together. It's a snowball effect from hell for Hogan. But, yeah, I thought it was funny that Hogan thought to say, oh, I was booed because I'm a heel. Anyway, guys, it's super important to me that you guys support the show. We need all the help we can get from you guys. So if you want to support the channel, become a member or become a subscriber or click the like button or leave me a comment down there. I'd love to hear from you so I can give it a little pin, like, click, whatever. I will click it. Trust me. I'll click you off. You leave a comment, I will click you off. And tell me, maybe in the comments, you guys can tell me how many times Hulk Hogan's been the WWE champion. And if you really want to support the channel directly, especially if you want something said, a shout out, or you want to push a product, you want to sponsor the show, whatever you want to do, man. Drop the big ones to paypal.me/Joe Cronin Show. PayPal.me/Joe Cronin Show. Emergency fund, if you guys want to support directly. I will shout you out. If you want to be anonymous, I'll leave you anonymous as well. I won't say anything, but if you want to be shouted out, you should be. Let me know. And then if you wanted to go directly support with these two things like Vimeo or Venmo rather, and Cash App, there you go. Some people have asked to send stuff to me that way. Very nice, you guys. I really appreciate it. If you know somebody rich who loves wrestling and loves a pasty white moron with a backwards hat, send them my way, because we need to keep the power on, literally. So there it is. Enjoy it. I still don't have internet, but I might be live at some point if I fix it. We'll figure it out. We're in the hole big time. I'm Joe Cronin. This is the Joe Cronin Show. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. And if you shop on Amazon, use this Amazon link that's popping up right now. When you click it and you buy things, I get credit for your purchases. Or just keep watching videos. That's the best thing you can do. Keep watching my videos right now. They're on your screen. Click on them like you click your girl's mousy. I am Undertaker, and I love Kane's private part.